Okay, so turn the water off, and then this is a 2-story, so you want to open up all the faucets, and even on a single story you'd want to open up all the faucets to get any residual water out, and then you're going to open this up and let all the water drain, which this is one of the lowest spots in the house, so this is going to take a little bit. If you have any water inside this at all, you're not going to be able to solder anything. Even the smallest amount, even a drip or two, is going to make it where you won't be able to solder. And I'm not going to fool around with heating this up and trying to remove it from the copper. I'm going to cut the copper because I'm going to set this up in a way so that way in the future I won't have to do any soldering on this. I'm going to put a threaded piece on here. So now that this is cut, you can use a little thing like this, which is basically just a wire brush to go around the outside, because you want this to be clean. And if you don't have one of those, you can use emery cloth. This is a plumber's emery cloth, and you basically just end up kind of cruising around the outside of this. And all of the copper that you're planning on sweating or soldering, whatever you want to call it, needs to be really clean. You can't have anything on there, because if you do, it'll prevent a good joint. And we're probably going to see some more water come out of here shortly, just because there was a couple of faucets that were forgot to be turned off, and they're going to be opening those faucets up for me. But even a small amount of water like this will prevent you from being able to solder anything. You need that to be completely dry. I'll generally get a rag and make sure that it's nice and wet, so that way later on during the time that I'm soldering and the water's off, I have something here for either burns, or I'll use it to clean stuff up afterwards. But this is nice and soaked, that's good. I'll just keep that down there. The valves upstairs will create a vacuum, and it'll make it where it's going to hold on to water, and you'll just get drips like this. Generally, on a construction site, like if I was going to be doing a lot of this, I'd bring a compressor and I'd blow all the air out of this. But I can let this drain and it'll work. So let me show you what we have here. I've got a threaded female piece here that slips over this, and then I've got my hose bib here. Okay, now this hose bib, you can solder it from the inside, or you can use it as threading, and I'm going to use this for threading, so that way in the future if I have to replace it, I don't have to do any soldering. Okay, and this needs to be clean, so you end up using like a wire brush. This is actually for a 3/4 inch pipe, but this will work still. And you want to have the inside of this really clean. You want to have a good solid joint. I'm also going to clean the threads out a little bit, even though it's not really necessary. I'm going to clean the outside of this a little bit. And the noise you hear is some parakeets. This is still too much water. This is still enough to not make it a good solder joint. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put flux on this and then on this. And this is a water-based flux. And this is going to help it adhere and clean the metal. So basically I'm just going to get some of this, put it on the inside, and I'm going to take some of this and put it also on the outside of this. This is going to help things out considerably, and this is water-based flux. So right there we're good. And I'm also going to take a little bit of flux and load it up. It's cold right now, so this stuff's pretty hard. It's generally like Vaseline, but I'm going to put a lot on my brush here, so that way when I start soldering this, I can clean it up a little bit. And I've got my solder here, lead-free solder. This is for plumbing. And the idea behind this is we're going to heat this up, not the copper piece, we're going to be heating this up right here. And as soon as this gets hot enough, I'm going to go ahead and place my solder, and the heat is going to draw that solder in, and we'll be able to see it even on the inside here. And it wouldn't even hurt to kind of go in on the inside right there, but if you do that, sometimes it gets on the threads. But I'm just going to come around the outside and it should be just fine. I might be able to steam out the rest of this dripping here, and I'm going to be using MAP gas. You can use propane, but MAP generally gets a little bit hotter. See on the inside there that it has gone all the way on the inside. So through the front I can see it, which means that I have a nice good coat. Okay, that's that, and you'll see that I used my my brush there with some flux on it to clean the outside of it so I don't have huge drips. Okay. Now I'm going to take the flux off and anything else there, because if not, it'll start to corrode, and it'll turn green over a period of time. So now I'm going to take some plumber's tape. This is Teflon tape. Well, it's not plumber's tape. Plumber's tape's actually a metal product, but this is Teflon tape, and I'm going to be wrapping a considerable amount on here. As far as hand tight, that's as far as I can go. So now I'm going to take a pair of channel locks here and see if I can get one more turn. So now that this is on and it's as straight as I can get it, I can't turn this anymore. That thing's nice and tight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the water on and test it out and make sure that I did an okay job. And then turning that, making sure there's no drips, we're good to go. You want to let the air get out of the pipes. You want to let the water run for a couple of minutes, because if not, after the pressure builds up, if somebody opens up the faucet, what's going to end up happening is it's going to make this really loud pop, and it's going to scare the shit out of people. But that's all there is to it. Now in the future, if I need to replace it, I just have to turn the water off and undo that, and I don't have to do any more soldering.